Welcome back to the Changemaker podcast. I'm your host, Deke Copenhaver. Today, I have my friend Mike Thomas, who is the host of the Forever Forward podcast. Their mission statement is the Forever Forward podcast explores diverse topics through interviews with subject matter experts and individuals sharing extraordinary life experiences. Each episode delivers valuable insights, practical knowledge, and competing stories, making it a resource for learning, growth, and discovery. This is like, the younger version of me. Covering themes such as personal development, industry expertise, and unique perspectives, Forever Forward is designed for listeners seeking engaging, thought-provoking, and authentic content that informs and inspires. So a little bit about Mike. Mike is a 28-year-old based in New York City, graduated from Boston College, and currently works in fintech, though one day plans to work on Forever Forward full-time. Mike aspires to facilitate engaging and candid discussions on the joys and challenges of life. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Thomas.
Welcome to the Changemaker podcast, hosted by Deke Copenhaver. Deke is the author of The Changemaker, a Forbes publishing book that has reached #1 on Amazon on multiple occasions and in multiple categories like management skills and total quality management. During this podcast, Deke interviews exceptional change-making leaders. Deke currently operates Copenhaver Consulting, where he helps local governments and other public organizations maximize their potential. He's also a sought-after public speaker. We hope that the Changemaker has an impact on you today and that you find takeaways that make you a better leader in your life. Now, here's Deke.
Oh, Deke, well, I appreciate that intro. That's probably the nicest intro I've ever gotten. And it's funny having the mission statement of my show read back to me, but we're 52 episodes in. This was kind of this crazy idea that I had last year to start this podcast, and maybe we'll talk more about that. But I think so far we're doing an okay job. 52 episodes in 52 weeks. So this is great.
Impressive. We've been doing this for 4 years now, but we might go to weekly. We have been doing it every other week, but let's talk, because you and I got connected through Turner Simpkins, mutual friend of ours, and Tara, who does her podcast out of the studio. But we talked when we were first connected about, I think podcasts are just growing and continue. I mean, I think the sky's the limit for them because everybody assumes that everybody is so, no attention span whatsoever. But I feel that people want knowledge and they want to hear good conversations. And I think it's basically the mainstream media. Oh, if it bleeds, it leads. But we've always done it this way. This is and I'm like, people will go to an alternative if you provide it for them.
I completely agree. And I think, too, there's a human element to podcasting that mainstream media can't ever replicate, right? I don't really think you come on this show, nor do I, with any type of agenda or message that we want to push. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about shows like this is that, look, you could tune into this podcast and just hear people talk candidly about, in some cases leadership, in some cases life journeys. And to me, at least, that's very compelling. That's more compelling than turning on the news in a lot of cases. So I appreciate what you're doing. I think I'm doing a similar thing.
Yeah, and there are more of us than there are of, extremist negative people, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But I've gone on a media diet. But I will say, last weekend with the protests all over the place and everything, and what happened, God forbid, in Minnesota, I tuned back in for 2 days. I'm back out of the mainstream media again. I'm like, okay, don't obsess over things you can do nothing about. You can do your podcast. I can do mine. We can help people. We can help build stronger communities, build stronger individuals and organizations. I would much rather do that.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And I think that's one of the interesting things that I've found since kind of starting my show and maybe since starting yours is look, I understand that headlines are flashy and it's easy to grow the viewership of things that are controversial. But I feel like shows like ours take a little longer to grow. But there's something really meaningful in this. Sure, maybe it'll take 5 times as long to grow the viewership, but within the episodes itself is content that's actually relevant to what it is to be human and what it is to lead, not just a headline that's going to make you feel anxious or nervous or polarized. And so that's why I'm happy that there's this new wave, I feel like, of people that are just authentic, trying to get out and have good conversations. Like that's at the essence of podcasting, which is, I think, why it's catching on so much in a world that's inundated by like toxic headlines and divisiveness. This is a platform where like we can come together and be like, wait a second, we're all just like humans trying to figure this out together. So anyways, thanks again for having me on. It's great to be here.
Well, you've touched on it several times about authenticity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think you can't fake sincerity. You can't fake authenticity. And that's what I love about podcasts too, is that they're, it's like they're live in real time. It's not like this is so scripted and we're like, okay, cut, got to go to a commercial. It's just like we can actually have a good conversation that draws people in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know you've written about it in your books. And I think like one thing too is when you have people on shows that have like strong moral convictions, like they believe what they say and they're being vulnerable and transparent about like, hey, I was right about this or wrong about this. I don't know. I think that's just a very compelling dynamic, is just to have people on there that don't come on with anything in mind to push. They just come on there to discuss. And yeah, it's definitely something that I'm trying to push on my show as well.
Well, and we live in an epidemic of loneliness, depression, addiction, and it's like a lot of people feel marginalized. They don't feel included in the conversation. That's what I hope, that this is a respite from what people are seeing in the mainstream media as well as in social media. I mean, that we've discussed, the algorithms are not your friend, and you are not the consumer, you are the product.
Yes. In fact, that's one of my favorite quotes from our first conversation. I hadn't thought about it that way. And I want to touch on this quickly because I completely agree. This epidemic of loneliness, I think it's especially challenging for folks that are like Gen Z or like even in their late 20s, right? Because we kind of grew up with social media. And I think for a long time, I specifically thought that, let's say, social media, Instagram kind of like was my friend. And in a world that is supposedly so connected, I feel like more people feel disconnected than ever before, right? And that's due to social media. And nowadays, I find myself talking to ChatGPT like it's my friend. And then you kind of take a step back from all this and you're like, wait a second, like I'm in this room, I'm by myself. Like all these things that I'm seeing on my phone are like sort of not real. And that's not to say that I'm depressed or anything like that, but I think it is a real issue that a lot of people are facing today. Like it is an epidemic of people not realizing that they're lonelier than they are. I think that's a problem.
No, I agree. And I think I told you that I got off of all social media like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, good for you.
But part of that to me was, I'm like, okay, I've got 13 great nieces and nephews now. So my oldest great niece is 16 years old. She's a beautiful girl, lives in Charleston. But I'm like, well, if I'm going to tell them, particularly, I mean, I think it's difficult with females, particularly when it's like you've really put a lot of your self-worth in the number of Instagram or TikTok followers you have or likes you get. And I think for a young girl, it's unhealthy for anybody. But I'm like, so if I'm going to have that conversation with my niece, Caroline, at some point about, I got off of social media because of this. But if I had not, and she's like, okay, well, you think you're producing good content, but you're saying my content's not good, but you're doing Instagram. And there's still a narcissistic factor about it, whether you feel like you're producing good, healthy content or not. So I'm like, in order for me to have any validity in making that case, I got to go cold turkey.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should ask you, how has it been, right? You're off social media. Do you feel what do you feel?
I do not feel less than at all.
Really?
I mean, I've been reading voraciously and listening to podcasts and everything. I just don't miss it because it's interesting. I had a guy who's a cybersecurity professional on recently, expert, but he said, basically Russia does not want a hot war with the U.S. They want to use social media to turn us against each other. And his biggest concern is China, because the Chinese government does own TikTok and 150 million users. He's basically like, they've got CIA level clearance to everybody that's on TikTok. And I know it seems, well, it's light, it's fun and all, but I'm like, I don't want to be manipulated. And I really don't want, not that they don't have access to it anyways, but I don't want the Chinese government having access to all my information.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want anybody having access to my
No.
information. Like, my fiance, she can go through my phone and see whatever, but like by
Yeah.
and large, I'm not really interested in people looking through my stuff. So it's interesting. I should probably think about, because for as much as I kind of preach about, to your point, this epidemic of loneliness, I'm on social media, right? And it pulls me in every single day. And so, yeah, I got to think more about it because I feel like at first, that first week would be really tough. And then
Yeah.
maybe I'd get over it,
Well, and it's basically, it is addictive, and it's addictive on purpose because, I mean, they're
Of
giving you
course.
dopamine hits to keep you signed on so they can make money off of you.
Oh my
And
gosh,
it
of course.
really, I was on it from the get-go when I was in office with Facebook because I thought it was a great way to, reach my constituents. But what I've realized is it's, once you go cold turkey, and we tell ourselves, or I told myself, well, doing what I do, I'm an author and a podcaster, I've got to have, social media. But I'm like, okay, how much did it really do for me? What job, what work really came out of it? And I didn't see a whole lot.
Wow. That's really interesting. And I can kind of relate because I'm not an author, but I am a podcaster. And, I've noticed that the more I consume, the harder it is for me to like create. Like I almost feel like the more I sort of digest from a TikTok and an Instagram, the harder it is for me to have like original thoughts and ideas. I feel like everything I think about now is just like some regurgitation of something I saw on a Facebook reel. And so there's probably something powerful, even if you're not like a creator or an author, just
Yeah.
to be able to start to have like original ideas in your mind. Because, look, a lot of what we're thinking about is tainted by what we see all day. And for a lot of us, that's Instagram, that's social media. So props to those folks that created those platforms because, man, they're the most addictive things that exists on earth today.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. As I say, I've been reading voraciously, and something I'm reading now was talking about exactly that we can't focus. If you spend so much time distracted by social media, it really is. I mean, it's so much easier for me just to not have tons of things going through my head all the time because it is, you watch it and you can't unwatch it. I mean, those images, what you see stay in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even graphic images, right? Like pictures of the war in Ukraine and what's going on overseas. Like nowadays we have more access to, geopolitics and like what would otherwise be very censored than ever. Like I think if people in the 40s had access to like real-time images of what was going on in World War II, like they would be appalled. And so we've just become desensitized. That's all. And I think in some ways, maybe it's good because we have a better handle on what's going on. But I think in a lot of ways, it's probably not so good, especially for young people. I'm seeing the effects. I'm living the effects of it right now. Let's put it that way.
Well, and it's like I tell people, I mean, it's social media, but it's also the 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah.
So you're not old enough to remember this, obviously, but I was born in 1967. In 1968, so the casualty rate from Vietnam was the highest it ever was during that war. There were literally riots all over the United States of America. Lyndon Johnson announced he was not going to run for president without telling anybody.
Oh, wow.
So Nixon got elected. It's just all these things. And I'm like, man, if we had had the 24-hour news cycle or social media in 1968, I mean, imagine what the world would have looked like then. It really would have looked like it was on fire. Not that it, to a degree, doesn't look like it's on fire right now.
No, I can only imagine, right? And at every angle, I feel like people want to spew something at you. They want to tell you something. They want to share your opinion. This is actually a question I had for you, Deke. I feel like you're qualified to speak on this. One of my favorite quotes from you is from your book, and it says, listening is the most powerful tool that any leader has at their disposal because when people feel heard, they feel valued, right? And in this 24-hour news cycle, in this world where everybody wants to tell you things, nobody wants to hear you, I don't know. I would just like to hear a little bit more about what you mean when you say that one of our most powerful skills is to listen.
And it's interesting that you should ask that. So we have a long-term Hurricane Helene recovery group here. Augusta took a direct hit, so we're going to be dealing with it for years to come. But they're bringing me on to help coordinate some of the efforts. But I've said, look, this has got to be grassroots based. we have got to be out there and have a presence with the people we're serving, because that gives people dignity.
Yeah.
It makes them know that they have value. And I'm like, this can't be done. You can't do that through a social media campaign. I ran my first campaign, a ballot initiative to get our mayor a vote last year. It was positive, it was uplifting, it was inclusive, it was grassroots based, which doing it that way, any kind of a campaign or any initiative, way more time intensive, way more difficult, but way, way more effective. But I think that's what we're losing in all of it. A lot of this is humanity. It's like you talking to Chat GPT. I was reading something that's like at one point, and there are already girls with chatbot boyfriends. I'm like,
oh, I see. I didn't hear that. That's crazy.
I'm like, what? But that's that dehumanizing when we don't really see each other, but we have to have that presence and actively listen. That's the only way we're going to heal our nation or our businesses or our families.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll have two follow-ups to that. First of all, I didn't know about the fake boyfriends. I guess I guess you could do it, right? Like we have access to it, but just even the other day, right? I kind of caught myself using ChatGPT almost as like a therapist, right? Asking it about my problems and this and that, and feeling kind of like a victim. And I sort of looked at myself like, what am I doing? Like, I have a wonderful fiance, I have tremendous friends that all can lift me up. And here I am turning to my phone because it's convenient, right? And you can almost get tricked into thinking that is somebody else on the other end. And I think that validates exactly what we're talking about. We just want to be heard. And so if we feel like we're being heard by the phone, then that's where we're going to go. But I think that's really dangerous. Like, I think that's, because the phone it's not a real person, but it makes it feel like you're talking to one, I guess is what I'll say on that.
No. And that's, as you mentioned, I mean, I've got a very strong faith, and God meant for us to live in communities. I mean,
yes.
That was the intention. And I'm like, it's just, the more we can create spaces to bring people together, and I think podcasts are great because they're more intimate and you can listen to them. But we've talked about doing this podcast, taking it on the road and just going to events and interviewing your average man or woman on the street.
Oh, I love that idea.
Because I exist at the grassroots level. I get my energy from interacting with people all over the place. I go to the Y every morning. I do all this. But I'm like, that's the power of community. And I think once people get that, and you can kind of feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself and you're caught up in something.
Yes.
That, as I say, I mean, something going viral on social media, it is not the same thing as, spending time at a farmer's market with real people and talking to them. There's just something nurturing about that.
Yeah, no, there absolutely is. And I guess I have to say, it's funny you mentioned this because, look, I guess if I want to think about, what do I want my listeners to feel like when they're done with an episode of my show? I think that I would say that I want them to feel seen and heard, right? Yeah. Some level of what I said makes them feel like, oh, that person understands me. That person gets me. And maybe that's partially due to the want of myself to feel that way as well. But it is funny how, it's slightly hypocritical because I'm using social media to try and create that, right? But at the same time, hopefully yours and mine and the intentions are there to try and create this digital space where people feel like included and part of the conversation. Obviously, it's great to be out there as well, like you do. But like, it's also, nice to have this digital space where people feel comfortable to just share stories. I think that's like a really special thing to be creating.
Well, unfortunately, here in Augusta, we've seen over the past several years, a lot of people take their own lives, young people.
Oh, wow.
And, it's really, it goes back into the epidemic of loneliness. But one of the things that we're going to focus on with our recovery efforts is engaging that next generation, really getting them to be a part of shaping the future of our city and showing them, you are important. You do belong with this city. We want you to be a part of this, because I think that will get them working together on something that's bigger than themselves and that's tangible, where you can see the difference that you're making in your own community. And that really, begins to build confidence, begins to build dignity. But I share with people, I can speak into this. I think God has spent my entire adult life preparing me for this moment now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I told you, if you read it in the book, I lost my first wife to suicide when I was 29 years old. And we were just talking about it, my producer and I, guy who was 2017, or was it 17 or was it 19? But a guy who it was 18, but a guy who was a dear, dear friend of mine, Philip Lee Jr., phenomenal musician, phenomenal athlete, just like, the most well-loved guy, but he had mental illness and he ended up taking his own life in 2018. So I'm like, this stuff is personal to me. If we can do better, but it's not going to come by just, through social media connections. That's not going to, I don't believe that's going to heal us.
No, I don't either. And I am sorry to hear that. And I've heard similar stories, and I know folks in my network who have befallen the same fate. And, I guess on the faith part, what I will say is, you said God has been preparing you your whole life for this moment right here. I would 100% agree. And I've said this on prior shows. I kind of refound my faith about a year ago, hit rock bottom, sort of had to build myself back up again. And now as I sit here having conversations like this, the way I describe it is I just feel the closest to God when I'm doing this. And it's kind of a hard feeling to articulate. Like, what does that really mean? All I can tell you is that I feel like I am moving in the way that God wants me to move in the world when I do this show and when I connect with people. And so, look, it feels good to be on my phone and to be like watching videos and whatever, TikTok, but like I feel close to God when I do my podcast and when I connect with people. And so that to me is like the highest order of myself is to pursue that mission.
Okay, we're going to get real deep here. I love this stuff. But no, that's something that, so I've been, as I say, reading all these books. One of them says God speaks to you in different ways. Yeah. And one of the ways he speaks to you is when you're doing something that is causing you joy, that is God speaking to you. But there are so many that you can do listening prayer, you can do all this. But I've thought about that. That's sort of with me and social media. As much as I did it, it is the dopamine. It is not really bringing you joy because, it's just like a sugar rush. It
actually makes me feel worse, honestly.
Me too. And that's funny when people are like, well, how do you feel about not being on it? I'm like, I feel a whole lot better. And I'm intentionally spending more time with people in face-to-face conversations. And it's nurturing, it's nourishing, and it's healthier but I worry about your generation. I have great hopes for your generation because I believe that, there's a social justice issue component. It's not, I think your generation might not be all Democrat or Republican or whatever, but it's just, I just perceive that a lot of the people I talk to that are in your generation really want to make a difference in the world and want to work together to do that.
Yeah, well said.
I'm just here to help mentor as best as I can.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm an old man now.
No, you're not. No, please, God, no. It's funny you mentioned how, so I need to pick this book up that you're reading because this is actually, you say you want to get deep. I'll get deep quickly for a second too. I'm definitely I'm a very faithful person, but I'm also a skeptic. I'm a skeptic of my own self. And I'm always kind of interrogating the way that I think. Like, why do I believe this? Or is this true? Is this not? And so on one hand, I feel so close to God when I do my show. But on the other hand, I feel like, wow, it's so convenient that I feel close to God when I'm doing something that I like. Like, I wish I felt more close to God when I was struggling. I wish I felt more close to God when when something horrible happened to me. And so I've had to kind of find that nuanced relationship and feel okay with the fact that I can still have faith during those harder times. And I lean on my faith, but it's also okay to have faith when I'm doing the thing I like. That's been a real, I would say, positive unlock for me is feeling like God has my back, whether I'm doing a podcast or I just had the worst day ever. That's been really helpful for me.
He is omnipresent. He's with us all the time.
Amen.
And one of the things I've read is basically, so the voice that you hear, everybody hears voices, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the things that are not generative, the things that say you're not enough, you're punishing yourself, those are not God speaking to you.
No.
God speaks in generatives, builds you up so That's one of the things that I've really focused on doing is that listening prayer. But it's, you know, we're all in this life together. And it's like they say that you can't give somebody something you don't have. So if you don't have joy, you can't give joy. If you don't have love, you can't give love. And for me, it's almost like healing, you know, coming through cancer a couple of years ago, I'm like, okay, you healed me so I can help heal others. And thank you very much for that.
I love to hear you frame it that way. I mean, I think part of it too is like, obviously the first is gratitude, like you just mentioned. And then another part of it too is like, I see a lot of people nowadays with such strong egos. They're so tied to who they are or who they think they are or who they think they should be. And I used to be that way, for sure. I used to be that way. And I'm not saying I'm perfect now, but I think one of the things I'm trying to do is like shed a little bit of that ego. And in so doing, I find myself far more open to just like other people's viewpoints and being empathetic. I think we could all, you know, benefit to lose a little bit of the chip on our shoulder.
Well, and it's really living into your true identity. And I've mentioned this on a lot of shows. It's like Jamie Winship is a great author that I've read many times, but he's got a book called Living Fearless. But it's like, okay, what is your true identity? It's not your bank account. It's not your job. It's not your title. It's not your family name, all this. It is, what is your true identity that God called you to be? And I've really focused on that healer, bridge builder, you know, community builder, encourager, all this. I'm like, that's who I am. So I'm living into that. But it's like you start to set aside your ego. So I was doing an interview with a guy for a class he was doing at Duke Divinity School. And so he read my bio or whatever. And I'm like, okay, and now that makes me feel uncomfortable. All those things are just recognitions or titles. That's not really who I am.
Yeah, right. And I think it's easy to get mixed up into thinking that is who you are. Right. Like I recently went through kind of a career pivot, from like finance into technology. And I didn't realize it at the time, but a lot of who I was tied to like my job title. And I didn't realize until I left that so much of my self-worth was affiliated with that. And so much about how I, have my internal dialogue is affiliated with that. And so it's been an uncomfortable process decoupling like my title with, hey, who really am I? Like, what do I like? And that's been one of the challenges and joys, I think, of going on this kind of journey over the last year of refinding myself is it's hard to ask yourself hard questions like, who am I? What do I actually like to do? Yeah. What do I not like to do? But it's also, I mean, it's one of the greatest things you can do is just sit there and ask, like, am I who I say I am? And am I becoming the person that I'm supposed to be?
Well, and for me, I've thought about that and I've spoken to people about it. What if, you can help kids when you're so insecure, say you've got your own true identity that God has given you, which is your gift to the world. You don't have to be like the girl that's got 1 million TikTok followers.
Yes.
You don't have to be. That's not necessarily what success. And I'm like, to me, what's cool and what success is, I love seeing people in general make a difference in the world. And it doesn't cost you anything to smile at somebody or to make somebody's day a little easier. And that is super cool to be. I mean, I'm not so sure that being a big Hollywood actor or whatever, I don't know, they might have plenty of problems, but fame and fortune are not what I'm about these days, for sure.
Yeah, no, certainly. And honestly, to circle back on that social media point, look, I think it's harder than ever nowadays to sort of forge your own identity, especially coming up in a world where social media is so dominant and like in the face of all these young people, including me, because we're almost not deliberately, but like in a way, I think we're told who to be. Like we're guided into these archetypes of like, I'm a this person or I'm a that person, right? And that extends to politics as well. But I think just like we have things thrown in our face. And so you have to be very deliberate about A, filtering through some of that stuff, but B, just like figuring who your identity is. And in my case, it's a number of things, but one of them is like my faith and being rooted in that. Like I will not stray from these things. And it can be odd and uncomfortable when like maybe your friends want to do other things you don't agree with, or, maybe people are speaking out on an issue and you don't have that same stance. But like, I also think it's very liberating to be like, I am my own person in this world where people want me to be this. I am not that because I am actually this other person. And that's like I think that's powerful.
Well, and that's, I think I used to feel different in a lot of ways because I do have differing viewpoints. I can talk to anybody and appreciate everybody else's viewpoints, but I tell people it's like I was born in Montreal, Canada.
Okay.
Moved here at 4 years old in the early 70s to the Deep South, thick Canadian accent, painfully shy, couldn't go to birthday parties. So I'm like, I know what it felt like to be an outsider or feel like you were one. But I'm like, I'm like, that was such a blessing to have that, formative experience in my life because it made me want to make other people feel included. And that you're accepted, you're loved. Come on in out of the cold, and we'll hang out together and have a cup of coffee or a beer.
I find that with so many things too. I think, again, God's timing is always, I think, perfect. And like, you look back on certain things that you thought were so challenging, and then maybe they give you empathy later on in life to be able to be like a more helpful person or to see other sides. Like I do try and in my hard, challenging moments be like, there will be a day where I look back on this and say like, oh, that's why that happened, or that's why this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's, there are to me, there are no really bad life experiences because we can learn something from everything. It's like, would I have chosen to get cancer? Probably not.
Right.
But I met so many people through the process and all that I'm friends with now. So, I mean, and, having lost my first wife the way I did, it's enabled me to talk to other people that have considered that and speak with, some validity about what damage that action can cause, So once again, I mean, all the good and bad stuff, I mean, I carry it with me, but we're all different. We've all had different life experiences and we can all learn from each other.
Well said. And I think, look, I think it's actually really valuable when you say to come from a point of validity. I think, everybody has a point of validity on a number of different, hard things they've been through. But in this specific conversation, like you can say honestly, like, hey, would I have chosen to get sick? No. But I look back and I say, man, in some ways there were silver linings. And I think that's true of everything.
Well, it's funny. So in 2020, we have corgis, cute little dogs that the Queen had. But one of our corgis was diagnosed in 2020 with lymphoma.
Okay.
So we had to take her on the road to get treatment in Columbia, South Carolina, about an hour from here. So we had two corgis at that point. We lost her in 2022, but we just traveled with them every place. And so we were in Columbia, South Carolina. We got to be friends with all these homeless gentlemen. And then we're at this nice steakhouse. But I'm like, okay, I don't care from what walk of life you're from. You love our corgis.
Yeah.
We can all agree that the corgis are cute. So isn't that a starting point? Whether it's the homeless people or it's the politicians, you all love the corgis. But that's what I always try to do is just find common ground with everybody because it's there.
It's always there. And I think that's maybe one of the greatest misconceptions of modern times. And also one of the things that I've learned through my show is for as divided or as different as we all seem, I think we are more similar than different every time.
Well, by far. And that's why that's how we got connected.
Exactly.
We're doing the same thing in a different way, but I look forward to continuing the dialogue. But as we get down towards the end, I like to ask two questions of my guests, and then we're going to do a home and away series, and I'm going to come do your show.
Perfect.
But okay, where can people find you?
Well, thank you for asking. So I have a YouTube channel. It's at Forever Forward Pod, Forever Forward Podcast. If you just Google it, and by the way, that's so surreal to me at this point that if you Google Forever Forward Podcast, I now come up. So just Google Forever Forward Podcast, and you can find my Instagram and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, on a daily basis, what puts a smile on your face and brings joy to your heart?
Oh, man, that's such a great question. On a daily basis, man, I would say the thing that brings me the greatest joy, at least in this moment, is it a cop-out if I say I have the most wonderful fiance? She's so lovely. She's supportive. We laugh, we joke. But even beyond that, when I go outside, New York City is like how do I put this? New York City is a hotbed for people of all different backgrounds and types. And I've now tried to make it a point, even if I'm just like checking out at the grocery store, to just be like, hey, I like that shirt. Or, hey, I appreciate you helping me put these groceries in a bag. And that's really been something that's brightened my days more than I thought really it ever would. And so that's something I've been trying to do. That has brought a lot of joy to my heart. And I think it's an extension of the show. I just want to connect with people, even if briefly, to remind me that like I am a human being, right? This is like the human experience. And so far it's been going okay.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that we said you can't fake authenticity, sincerity, but you can't fake joy either.
You can't.
If you're having a good time, which we've had a great time and look forward to having more great times, but it comes through, and people want to be part of positive energy. I guarantee you, we will get plenty of good feedback on our conversations.
Well, I'm again grateful, Deke, for this. This has been a pleasure, and you'll be appearing on my show, so I'll be posting an episode there. But being a guest on your podcast has been lovely. Thank you for what you're doing. I mean, look, there's certainly no shortage of podcasts out there that are trying to sell a course or a product, and but like this is the light that we need in this podcasting industry. So thank you again.
Well, man, thank you, Mike, and I tell you, I will be coming your way in just a minute. That's all the time that we got. Dropping the mic, and we are out. Hey, guys, thanks for listening to or watching the Changemaker podcast today. Greatly appreciate it. If you're listening and you want to see the video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Deke Copenhaver. That's pretty easy to remember, I would think. But really, we also want to remind you to like, subscribe, rate, across all platforms, download. And if you're looking for a coach, a speaker, or anything, you know where to find me. Just email me at dekecopenhaver.com. And thanks so much for listening.